You are listening to Cemetery Confessions, the world's #1 goth talk podcast.
Okay, hello and welcome back to Cemetery Confessions, the podcast for discussions around the goth experience for those interested in finding community and exploring beyond the surface of aesthetic. This week we will be discussing class boundaries in relationship to scene participation, socio-cultural cachet, and subcultural subversion, and of course fashion. We'll also be hearing a bit about the scene in Tampa, reviewing the new album from Kaelan Mikla, and talking about a whole bunch of other stuff. So as always, I am the Count, and I'm here with my co-host Trey. Hello, Trey.
Hello, Count.
And our special guests this month are DJ Mouse, who you may know from Communion After Dark, as well as local DJ nights at the Castle and Obscura Undead, as well as DJ Azzy, who is also a DJ from Tampa and contributes to the Obscura Undead website and DJs event nights as well. Thank you, too, for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get into it. You guys know I like to start with a little information about your background and how you were sort of introduced to the goth scene and why that's remained relevant for you.
I got into goth music first through digging through just CD bins at a used bookstore when I was like 13, 14 and pulling out the stuff that had the coolest covers, which ended up being just like Sisters of Mercy and Susie Sue and Bauhaus. And I'm 30. Yeah, I'm 30. So this was a good bit ago. So this is like before we really had internet, because I grew up in a really rural area and we had dial-up and we weren't allowed to use the dial-up for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Well, you could, because you couldn't make a phone call and use the internet at the same time.
No one ever called, but we couldn't be on the dial-up.
Okay.
It was bizarre. Like we had it, I think, so that we could say that we had internet, but we couldn't use it.
Okay.
So like a lot of my introduction to the music was just these CDs that I found, and I ended up picking up like really early, like, okay, like what are some of the characteristics of the artwork on these albums, and then finding that in other albums, and getting into labels. So I found out about like Cleopatra Records pretty quick, just digging through. So I'd always look for like that little eye, like when I was going through all the bins. And that's how I got into it, is just music feet first, just haphazardly and trying to find all of that. And that's stayed with me for the last 16, 17 years, is it's always music first. That's like, and I realize this is an episode about aesthetics, so. Well,
I mean, to be fair, you were picking your music based on aesthetics, so it does fit.
But, hey, there we
marketing,
go.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was great marketing. These album covers, just like these really scratchy like album covers that didn't mean anything. Like
they didn't make any sense.
Like, what's the cover for First and Last and Always? That doesn't make any sense. It's just the cover, and then there's just a bunch of red and black.
I was going to say Bauhaus album covers.
Oh, like what is it, like The Mask?
Yeah, it's like, what, did a 3-year-old draw that?
I love it.
Don't make fun of Peter Murphy like that. Come on.
Oh, am I? Oh.
Sometimes he has tantrums and throws bottles. Like it's fine. It's fine.
Like a 3-year-old?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Apparently there was drama that he very much avoided at the Cleveland show, despite everything. We just put a show review up on the website.
Oh, I missed it.
On Obscura Undead. One of our writers, because we just have people who volunteer from all over the place, and I love it so much.
Yeah.
She wrote on Columbus. She wrote on the Columbus show, and apparently there were rumors that there was a fight, but kudos to Peter Murphy. He kept his cool. David J. was apparently more angry.
Interesting.
All right.
There was a fight like in the crowd?
Yeah, apparently some dude tried to bum rush the stage and knocked a bunch of people over.
Ooh.
Yeah, because he was trying to like get up on the stage, and then some second dude did, and then the stagehands wouldn't get off the stage, and then there were sound problems.
Oh, that sounds pretty rough.
Yeah, you can go read the article.
Peter Murphy's like, I can't go to jail again. I will link that in the show notes as well. So
I'm Mouse. I actually just go by Mouse. So don't call me any other names that you might find on the internet. I got into, I've always been into music. I got it from my dad. He was always into collecting records, and he was into stuff like Depeche Mode and Gary Newman. And I grew up with those records in the house. I'm not going to say how old I am. I am older than Azzy, and I'm old enough to not tell you how old I am.
Oh, how old
but
everybody's told me how old.
Not old enough to be her mother. That's the important thing.
No, I'm not. I'm not. So, but I was always into music. It definitely was one of those things that it was the only thing that resonated with me. I didn't have anybody who I could connect with when I was going through middle school or high school. So I always stuck out like a sore thumb anyway because of the way I look. I am a dark-skinned girl, by the way, which I won't bring up again. But because of that, I was always an outcast. I had to make my own clique. So I hung out with like art kids and stuff, just trying to fit in somewhere. And it all started with not enjoying anything that was mainstream. So, I'm looking for music. I'm not liking anything that's mainstream. And I find myself at a record store. And the guy who owned this particular record store, I think it was in Sarasota, Florida, his favorite band was Bauhaus. And he would take me to the back of the store where all of the import discs were, and all of the rare Gothic finds were. And I don't even think we were calling it Gothic. It was just dark alternative music. And so I got into Bauhaus. I got into Faith and the Muse heavily, and Project Records. So it was mostly like ethereal kind of Gothic, Lycia and Love Spirals Downwards and stuff like that. And then, of course, I got into Cleopatra and all the, this is what Goth is, the Death Rock compilations from Cleopatra. So the old ones. And I had all of those compilations in the black box and all that crap. But I still needed more. So even from a very young age, from like 15, I was making music for people in the form of mixtapes. That's how DJs start. They make music for their friends. Yep. And I was always just into the hardest to find stuff. So, my love right now is dark wave. It's always been there. The German dark electro scene actually has carried me through a lot of the 2000s. So I'm into all of that, future pop and any kind of dark indie. So every kind of dark electronic genre I'm into, and as well the post-punk revival. When it comes to actual post-punk, not so much into it. Like the Susie and Joy Division, not so much, but I was more into like Depeche Mode and The Cure. And that's how I got into a lot of the dance floor goth. And I think that's what made me get into darkwave, was because I needed gothic music that I could dance to.
Yeah.
I think I'm done.
Okay. I am 32, if that's relevant. And to throw Trey under the bus, he's about a decade older than me. So
yeah, I'm 41.
Yeah.
Okay, I am close to one of those ages.
Congratulations.
All right. Well, go ahead.
I was just going to segue pretty much into what it's like here in Tampa.
Yeah, please do.
So because I am never satisfied with the mainstream music, we do have the nightclub, the Castle, and a lot of people have heard about the Castle, and there's some preconceived notions, and there's people who think it's a sex club and you're supposed to show up naked and strappy, and there's the people who show up and some DJs are playing like the popular industrial stuff, the Nine Inch Nails, KMFDM, Ministry, Rammstein. That's one whole part of it, but I'm not happy with that. So in the Castle, it's more electro-based. So the dark electro scene is the new stuff that you'd hear like at Wave Gothic Treffen or in clubs in Germany. So Swedish music, German music, UK music, all of that.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it is interesting that you can say that. You can say it's something you would hear at Wavegotik Treffen, and we just kind of understand what you're talking about. I don't know what that means, but it's interesting that it works like that.
I'm sorry. I have some assumptions, like especially when I'm talking to people about like dark electro. I sometimes assume that everybody knows what I'm talking about. So please stop me anytime, and I'll be glad to fill in the blanks.
No, I do. But, I just think it's interesting that there's this like I don't know, implicit understanding of genre preferences based on region and sound based on region, despite this sort of notion that there's a consistency of sound and style across borders. So anyway, sorry, continue.
Mm-hmm. That's the big thing, is that we talk to a lot of people across the world, and we're not even speaking the same languages, or we don't have the same experiences. But when you mention something like Treffen, it gives people a general idea of what type of music you're talking about. Even if the genres are confusing, we speak in bands, and people get it. Please cut me off when I start rambling. But so the castle is the hub of Tampa, mostly because it's been getting popular. And so people go there to hear just your basic goth industrial blanket umbrella music. And it's going to be the popular stuff. So you will always hear Susie and the Cure, but mostly you'll hear, that industrial stuff I was talking about, the Nine Inch Nails. And
I was really surprised the first time I went to the
Marilyn
castle.
Manson. Yeah, so that's actually what's popular. And then you have our Communion After Dark segment of it, where we're like, well, let's also play, on Saturday nights, let's play some of the newer dark electro stuff, because what dark electro is it's something between EBM and dark wave. It's something that you could flow to, you could stomp to it. It gives you some different emotions than your typical gothic music, and it's different than your industrial high school music. But people keep coming for that, and they love it. And the dark electro is that kind of underground to the mainstream goth scene, if you will.
Is there like a distinction between the types of people who are into any of those given segments, or do you see a pretty broad acceptance across, like I don't know, a death rocker, a goth, a weekender, a rivet head, whatever?
Well, for the most part, people don't really care about music, is what I've seen in the goth scene. That's a sad reality. I couldn't walk up to your average person in a goth scene and talk to them about music. And they'll say, oh, I like this song. I've heard it 150 times over the last 17 years, but I don't know what it is. And I just want to scream and run out of the room. There are people that are siloed.
Yeah.
They listen to what they like, and they don't listen to anything else. They get comfortable in one genre.
Sometimes that's even span to a genre. I know when I was DJing, it would be, you had the same people ask for the same song every week. And I mean, I understand being comfortable. You like that song, you know what to dance to it and all that. But yeah, it was a frustration for me to see people who were unwilling to branch out beyond, I just love this one song.
I think how that happened was people don't buy music, so you hear a song that you like. In order to hear it again, you go to the club and you request it. These people aren't out there buying the record, looking it up on Bandcamp. They're not listening to it at home. The only time they ever hear it is they go out and they request it. But if you buy music, you don't have to keep requesting the same song over and over.
That makes sense. I hadn't really thought of that, because usually people always ask me, well, when I go out to a club and I have an interaction with the DJ, they're always, do you have a request? What do you want to hear? And I'm like, I don't want to make any requests. If I wanted to hear something that I knew, I would go home and play it. I'm out here because I want to have you introduce me to new things, and I want to hear new things. And sure, I might not like a large chunk of it, but my goal is to go out to hear new things. So I rarely make any requests.
Yeah, that's a big DJ problem we have. So we have a lot of DJs in Tampa. I want to say more DJs per capita than any other city in Florida, feels like. So you have the DJs that will play what's comfortable, those well-known songs that are going to fill the dance floor from beginning to end. And I like to stay in the middle.
I personally like. I feel like if you're doing that, if you're just playing what will get people on the dance floor, you're not doing your job. I think you're doing a disservice to the community and to the music. And it's like I think as a DJ, you have to take risks and try things that might just kill the floor. But that's just, I think that's just part of the job.
Sometimes killing the floor is half the fun.
Sure.
I kill the floor constantly. I mean, when Mouse and I started working together, before we even first DJed together, I told her flat out, I am not going to play this or this or this or this. And I gave her a laundry list. Or at least I tried, because she cut me off and she's like, I don't care. Play what your heart says.
Yeah, play what your heart says. But then I did kind of laugh at you when I followed her to a gig in West Palm Beach, and she had the dance floor going to some nice wavy stuff, and threw on one song that I was like, oh no, it's a great song, but
it killed the dance.
Not right
floor.
now.
I loved it. I would have danced.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like people don't necessarily get their music from the club as much anymore, but I feel like only playing the classics and the popular songs is a great way to create a stale scene that eventually dies. I mean, maybe if you have, is it okay? I was gonna say, if you have enough of a population that you can still maintain it, but it feels like it's a recipe for a disaster.
Right, and we don't have that population right now because basically what's happening is you have your older goths who are loving the repetitive music, and they're aging out. You know, there's less of them because there's kids to take care of. There's jobs to wake up for in the morning, and they're not coming out as much. And then the younger crowd, they want to hear what they think they're supposed to be listening to, and it's not obscure. So a lot of that is how Obscura Undead was born. Like, we needed a community or something that is going to focus on obscure music, and we're not hiding that fact. It's called Obscura Undead because we are going to give you obscure music, and you're going to hear something that you won't hear from any other DJs, and people love it. You're loving it. They're hearing a lot of the post-punk revival stuff, the dark wave revival stuff, and you don't hear that at the castle.
Yeah,
well, I was just going to say, go ahead.
Awesome. I was just saying, the response that we've gotten from that, like, totally unexpected. I didn't expect it to go where it has, and it's only been, what, not even a year?
1 year. Actually, we started Obscura Undead, the Facebook, in March 1st, which is exactly a year, I think.
No, it's
in a week.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And we launched our first event in June of last year. And we had a death rock themed event. We had I can't remember what else we did. Oh, we did a
death rock theme event. We had a post punk revival event. We had the castle night.
Oh, we had one in the castle. So, like I had explained before, the new goth and post punk and dark wave, all of that new stuff, you don't actually hear it in the castle. The castle is like a big dance floor. It's a big club, lots of rooms, but it's mostly focusing on the popular stuff. So we rented out this private area in the bottom called the dungeon, and only people who were dressed appropriately, and I guess we'll get into that later.
Yeah,
but,
we will.
Only those people were allowed inside. So no people off the streets, which they're the number one patron of the castle now. None of that was in there, and it was a nice, private, safe space. People loved the music. William Faith and Scary Lady Sarah came down to spin for us.
That was so awesome.
It was beautiful. It was everything we could have hoped for. And we loved it.
It seems like, especially now with you mentioned the post-punk revival, that there has been such an uptick in concert events and club events, at least locally, because of this explosion of new bands and sounds, especially in the dark wave sort of genre. And you've even got older bands that from the 80s and 90s that are going on tour and everything. It seems like if you're not tapping into that, because I understand there was a few years ago, there was a big slump where there wasn't anything new. So maybe digging into that well of just classic popular stuff would be the right thing. But the club, I think, has to be dynamic. And if you only stick with that when there's all this new stuff going on, then I think you will get just people off the street, and you'll lose the clientele that are in the scene because they don't really want to hear that stuff, and you're not tapping into what's going on right now. And you kind of create this loop where you're going to lose out if you switch it up because you're too far into it, but you're too committed to a thing that's not going to be sustainable.
Yep. It is a loop. It
Yeah.
is. It's like a never-ending cycle. And the new people coming in, just like music itself, they make it their own, but no torch has been passed on. And that's what makes it sad for me, because I have people who are older than me aging out. I have people that are younger than me not understanding what's going on because it's not sending a clear message. You have all these different cliques that they're like oil and water, and the genres, like I was explaining before, are siloed. If you have one person who listens to EBM, that's all they listen to.
That's sad.
Yeah, and they basically, because we have so many DJs, we've started to become friends with other DJs, and we're all just DJ friends, just sitting around together, talking about and arguing about music, because we're the only ones who actually listen to lots of music.
Right. Like I remember, Mouse, you told me that you've been banging at the doors trying to get people to let post-punk and like the revival stuff for years now.
Yeah.
And that's how I started as a DJ back in 2016, is because I was still living in Honolulu, and I was like, finding new music is just the most exciting thing in the world.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like finding new food. It's like, why would you eat one food every night? Like people who eat Italian food all the time, just Italian food. Why?
I guess that's our personality flaw, but that's why I started, is because like I wasn't hearing what I wanted to hear.
That's how DJs start. That's how all DJs start.
Yeah.
You're not hearing what you want to hear. You like to share music, and it's not getting out there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess last question around the scene. Then you mentioned cliques and things. What's your opinion, I guess, on the health of the community as far as is it toxic where people are calling each other posers or elitists or whatever, or is there a lot of mixing of people hanging out, or is it really, really regimented into different groups? Like, do people hang out outside of club events, or is it just show up to party and then that's it?
Well, I'm with the DJ clique. So we have groups, and we don't like the fashion clique, and
there's
vice
a fashion
versa.
clique. Okay.
Yeah, of course. If you're all about talking about music, you almost can't even comprehend the conversations of people who only talk about fashion. But we'll probably get into that as well.
I don't understand why everybody doesn't talk about all of that. At least when I was coming up, when I was younger, it was always a sort of a little bit of everything. And you always were having late night conversations about any one of those things. It was never...
It should be.
Yeah.
I think people don't have the mental capacity to be able to handle multiple things
I think that's
anymore.
a bit unfair, but
is it not right? Is that
I
not
think
true?
that's just really unfair to say.
Maybe.
I think that people just are afraid to be wrong.
Yeah, we're afraid to have in-depth conversations and form passionate opinions anymore
Oh,
because
that's
somebody's
interesting.
always going to oppose us. So we
Well,
just
that's
keep
interesting.
quiet.
When you're conflict averse, it's hard to express something if you don't know you are absolutely confident in, your position on that, and you are standing from a position of absolute correctness. It is scary to jump into a conversation about any topic about that. And, maybe these people who got into it through fashion, they're very confident in fashion. They're only willing to talk about fashion because they just feel lost in the music, and they've run across too many people who, a fashion person talks to a music person, the music person basically totally shuts them down, and they just stop.
I'm friends with some of the fashion goths here, the people you classes at.
I'm actually partially fashion goth, so I do keep up on that. Being a regular at the castle, and I had some other positions within the club where people would come to me, and like I said, I stick out like a sore thumb, and I do not look cookie cutter to begin with, so I don't really want to get cookie cutter clothes that other people have. And
What do you mean by that? Is everybody buying from a specific online shop, or is everybody just in kind of casual clothing, or
well,
like,
we have a local shop here, Ravens and Rockers, that
Okay.
carries like Punk Rave and Killstar and Restyle.
Restyle is very popular right now.
And Demonias, and they stock have a rotating stock of a lot of the same popular things.
And I love that store. I love the people there. You can get some really great things there. The issue is when you have 10 people and they see one thing and it's in demand, all 10 of them will have the exact same thing. And we're going to the same place on Friday and Saturday, and we're looking each other in the eye. It's like showing up at the prom and all the girls are wearing the same pink dress, and we're like, I don't know if you guys have that problem, but girls do.
We don't, because we're all expected to show up in the same suit.
Hey, that's a good point, actually.
So with the the dark wave post-punk revival, with that comes that traditional original look of uniqueness, and that was the beauty of the scene to begin with. So we're all about pins and patches, and we've started making our own pins for the events that we're doing at Obscure Undead. And, you'll look at someone's jacket and you're like, oh my God, yeah, you were at that event.
Are you looking at my pins?
I'm actually looking directly at Azzy's pins on her chest right now. Yeah. So, our jacket lapels are our story now. That's kind of cool.
I agree. So, as I mentioned, we're talking about classism and class and a bunch of different ideas around that. We're not going to be able to cover this exhaustively, but I want to at least get some conversation in on this piece. And the idea for this comes not from a news article like we normally do. It comes from a YouTube video, because it is actually possible to put something on YouTube that isn't a goddamn unboxing or clothing haul. And that video is from Sweeney DeVille, who has been on the show before. And so I'll link the video below. I'll have some academic articles, I think, linked, and a couple other videos if you guys want to actually go watch it in and get that perspective that they're coming from. I'm not going to like pull quotes out of it or anything, but they cover a huge range of topics around class and classism, fashion, accessibility, lifestyle, all that kind of stuff. So I want to pull apart some of those ideas and get some thoughts on it, discuss it a little bit. And I think we should probably start with the concept of lifestyle. So for me, the way that I view lifestyle is this curation of items or ephemera that get displayed or worn. And they are this sort of signaling of social capital within the community, and this sort of bringing forth of an internal reality to a physical space. So it's that creation of an environment and an ambiance that denotes an underlying identity, but also functions in sort of a, I guess, recursive fashion to facilitate that very bringing forth or embodiment of identity. So you bring forth your internal state to the outward, and then the outward in turn allows you to reify and experience the internal state in a more meaningful way. And so I think that's like the depth of what lifestyle is, but I think lifestyle tends to get a bad rap because people assume it just means this accumulation of like figurines and clothing and decorations with no other meaning or value. But I think that in that definition of lifestyle, you're also including music and like collecting records and collecting, if you are into playing vinyl, you're getting, high-end equipment if you have the money, and like that's a whole thing, and that's central. That music piece is central to goth culture. So I think there's more to it than just dismissing the idea of lifestyle as irrelevant to being goth, which I hear a lot. People say it's not a lifestyle, it's a music and a culture around music, which I don't really agree with. But I want to, before we get into how this sort of relates to class, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts around if lifestyle is a thing, if it's valuable, or if it's related to goth culture, or how you view it, if you view it differently.
I like this expansion out to include just collectibles, because that way you can include all of your digital albums that someone buys, and that's still like an outward expression of what you have, of like what you value in the subculture. So
right,
I like that.
I didn't even think of that because I don't know why. I do have records, but there was a point where I had, this huge collection of CDs, and I was proud of it. And then I started going digital. It was a necessity when you're a DJ. So now I don't really have anything to show except for my Bandcamp collection. So if you want to follow me on Bandcamp, you can go look over there. But my first thing I was thinking of was like inside my house, and I'm in my house. I'm looking at my walls, and and I have a ridiculous collection of anime figurines that have no other value, and I love them. I have like I have like Hellraiser toys everywhere, and like I'm into like Lovecraft and Clive Barker and all this dark, morbid, demented stuff, and Junji Ito and stuff like that. So my house is full of all this crap, and as you get older, now that I finally got all the crap, I got it. But as you get older, right, you're like, I don't go outside. I don't go outside with all this stuff. So
yeah,
should I keep buying more crap, or should I just get rid of it all? And I don't know.
That's kind of how I always feel, because I've moved around so much that I feel like I can't express, that aspect of lifestyle, whatever that may be. So I don't have a lot of things in my apartment.
Do you want a lot of things? Because I could give you.
No, I do not want a lot of things. I instead value just having like a lot of my digital collection and having just a ton of books. And even though those are still a pain in the ass to move around, like my wardrobe is shit, my home decor is shit.
Yeah,
but see, I really do place a lot of value on my books and music collection.
My wardrobe is a mess.
So I guess I'm kind of in the same boat as far as the ephemera nature of lifestyle. I have a very, I guess, totally divergent idea of what constitutes lifestyle, because I have little to no interest in acquiring things that are reflective of who I am, or showing it off with, objects, be they records or figurines or patches or buttons or band T-shirts. I have just never really gotten into that. And I've been moving farther and farther into sort of a minimalist, don't really have many possessions kind of lifestyle. So my condo is barren. I have furniture. I do have some art that I haven't bothered putting up yet. It's just sort of sitting around. But I live primarily around what activities I choose to participate in, what events I choose to go to, what kind of things I choose to consume, be it purchase or stream or watch online. And I get most of my knowledge and my participation that way. And I consider that my version of lifestyle.
Yeah, I think consumption.
It's how I'm choosing to Right. It's a measure of choice and consumption. It is how I'm choosing to take what I own, whether it is money if I have it, or time when I have it. What I choose to spend that money or time on is how I do my lifestyle, and it has very little to do with the acquisition of physical possessions. So whenever I've heard people talking about lifestyle and talking about how there's this part about acquiring ephemera and shaping one's environment with objects, it always confuses me, I guess.
Interesting. There's certainly a element, I think, to not just necessarily through online groups and modalities, but I think maybe starting in the 90s, this idea of curating a collection of things as a representation of self, which is really part of why it gets into this idea of middle class, because a middle class sort of ideal is to welcome people into your home and have these meaningful pieces throughout your house that sort of show who you are as a person, which kind of is why this idea of goth as a middle class culture, partially at least, has come up. And I have seen that through, if you like recently online, people will share like, bedroom goals or music room goals or whatever. And it's these elaborate, like hashtag aesthetic, perfect, rooms of things being associated with sort of peak goth. So
Pinterest goth.
Yeah. Yeah, but I do think it goes deeper than that in the sense that this was a thing during the 90s goth scene of maybe mid 90s, at least in my understanding
to me, it was when the internet blew up. So that would be around 94 to 97. So you have the information age blowing up. And what do we have? We have all these visual websites saying, look at this, look at all this great stuff that you want. And that's when consumerism really blew up. That's what happened in the mid-90s that changed everybody's perspective, in my opinion.
I'd probably put it closer to the turn of the century than the mid-90s and into the noughties, preferably.
The naughties.
That's my favorite term for the 2000s.
Sure.
It's my absolutely favorite term for the 2000s. So I think it really blew up around then because, well, yes, the internet came up into the mainstream in the mid-90s. It wasn't a visual medium really yet. It seemed to be more informational at that time, or at least when I was getting into it at that time. And maybe I just wasn't going around the right places, but most of it were big directories, be it Usenet sites or MySpace pages and LiveJournal, which is a lot of text-based stuff. And then with the rise of your Pinterest and YouTube and Instagram and Snapchat, that was more in the noughties and beyond. And I felt that was kind of where it migrated more towards this show off what you have kind of environment. And then also in the greater community, just look at the rise of these loot box kind of services where you can buy an arbitrary box of stuff that you don't choose or curate the actual individual items. It's all items that are part of a category. And so it's showing your association with a certain group, whether it's geek category or literature category or wine category, whatever. You're not choosing the individual items, but you're getting items within that category. And potentially that's allowing you to show allegiance with that group without necessarily having the pressure to specifically choose things on your own.
I feel like that I agree. I think that's an extreme though, because I feel like there was still this sort of notion of being the, sitting in a Gothic castle somewhere in Europe while Lestat brings you a goblet of blood and Lord Byron like sucks on your toes or something. And this idea of still this outward ambiance that is manifested in reality from the sort of the feeling that the music would give you. And that it just made it easier to go to the extreme end once we did have those services catering to like just visuals and like cultural capital based on how hashtag aesthetic your Tumblr photo was, or your Snapchat was, whatever. But I think that's go ahead.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, one thing that really influenced sort of my idea of like this aesthetic was just being able to go and buy like Gothic beauty at the Borders.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me that had a huge influence, being able to find like these visual magazines in a really mainstream place that felt catered to me, but also, you know, there's the feelings of inadequacy,
right,
going glossy centerfold after glossy centerfold. But I mean, that's definitely like where it sparked for me, instead of you know, say people's curated, I don't know, MySpace accounts with their glitter fonts back in the day.
Glitter fonts.
Their autoplay music playlist.
That's the
kind
thing.
of missed those. Those were terrible.
No, I hated it.
It's so awful.
Have you seen that tweet that someone was like, I wish Twitter would implement some way that I could like customize my page and have music autoplay, and someone's like,
see that.
Yeah, we've gotten to the point where people don't remember what MySpace was.
Yeah, I remember MySpace. And you know, there were other sites that I was going through looking for the perfect imagery that would fit my melancholic mood. And it was kind of between those days, like not the information based, but not yet the Pinterest stuff. So before that, I want to say it was Tumblr or something where they had, you know, pages where I would see these beautiful Gothic images, and that's what I wanted around me all the time. And I was never one of those people that would invite somebody into my home. So the things that I've collected, all of my pile of crap, I'm not usually showing it to people. Like, you don't want to see the books that are on my shelf. Like, I've got things that, like, they'll lock me up for being a psychopath because I'm interested in all this amazing stuff. And it's not for the public to see. So
interesting. Yeah, I think that does diverge from the idea of lifestyle. I would still think that's a way of, I still think it's communal in some way, because like in comparison, you can have this sort of ritual of getting ready to go out to a club where you put on some music and you do your makeup and you get your clothes out and everything. And while it's still sort of private for you, in a way, you know that you're both doing the same thing while other people are doing it and participating in this sort of what is the word I'm looking for? Tradition of the culture that makes the insular private moments of ritual related to goth still meaningful in a communal aspect, even if you don't have like other people there with you.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. I so wanted to emulate like the things that I saw in movies and SNL's Goth Talk skit. Like just knowing that I was doing those same things that I'm seeing like in movies or being parodied, like, was really important for me.
Shout out to Count Feedback. Yeah, so and then on that sort of like on the material piece of that, I just wanted to point out that I don't think it's like obviously a lot of the stuff people do buy, but I don't think it's like this kind of requirement. And obviously two of you have expressed that it's not even a thing for you. Yeah, so at least locally there's community yard sale events for just people in the goth industrial scene where people will sell things that they have owned for relatively reasonable prices. And even there's a less like formal setting of that where people will give hand-me-downs to newer goths, or they'll share books from their collection that they've read already to newer goths, or give those kinds of things away, or like trade stuff. I've done that before in the past. I've given people like old zines and like pins and patches and things, and like just shared stuff, excess or stuff I'm not using anymore. And I think that's a thing that people do. So you don't necessarily have to have money for that type of thing. As long as you're getting involved in the community, I think you can still take part in that sort of exchange of cultural media and meaningful objects and things like that.
Well, sure. And related to that, there's also a fairly rich and varied, just crafty environment where people are making their own things. Like you guys were talking about making your pins for your events there. Yeah. That's a custom thing. And of course, it's not purely free. You have materials that you need to do and acquire. But you can make pins, people make patches, people screen print their own shirts, make their own jewelry, do art, photography, sculpture, whatever. And a lot of that definitely fits in with that. And, we'll definitely get you out of the, must consume capitalism side of things. So it definitely doesn't. I guess my issue with it as the lifestyle, I don't have an issue with it as a lifestyle. I just don't participate in it that way myself. But it's not one of a anti-capitalism, anti-consumerism kind of thing. It's just not how I choose to spend my time and energy. But it doesn't mean it's not a legitimate choice for others who choose to use it as a lifestyle. I wasn't intending to make, my expression of my choice be a reason to shame people who like to collect figurines or want to show off their vinyl collection. Those are all very legitimate. I just wanted to broaden the idea of lifestyle to more than just physical objects and ephemera. To say it's an expression of how you choose to spend what you have.
Yeah. Whether it's time or money. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that word expression is very important because, the stuff that we have in our house that makes us happy every day, that's one thing, that's how we heal ourselves when we get home. Mm-hmm. But then when we're outside, we're expressing ourselves in this culture somehow, in some way. And for me, a lot of it is clothing too, but it's my own personal wardrobe tastes, which are, backwards and upside down and all ripped up. And, I'm wearing what I wear that people you can't go buy it in a store. And then I talk to people and I'm talking about music, and that's my expression. Or however I choose to be creative that day. It could be DJing a night and building a playlist and making it sound a certain way. That's my creativity. And that has a lot to do with lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, DIY goes beyond. I think it gets stuck in a association with clothing, but like my wife has made ceramic like little scary pumpkins, and she's done paintings, and I do mostly just clothing DIY. But like what you just said, that's a form of DIY, and that I think is important to the culture. It doesn't have to be. I know because we are in a capitalist society, it's easy to equate thing with expenditure of money, but it doesn't necessarily have to go that route.
You don't have to spend money either. If you're creative, you can do anything without spending money. And even if there is something that you like that you need to spend money on, like a nice pair of boots, save up for it. And I think the problem with a lot of people within the scene is they're spending so fast and not thinking, they're not putting any kind of thought process into it, that they can't save money. So a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and they can't afford anything because they're not living wisely. And you learn that as you get a little bit older. Okay, if I want this nice article of clothing, I have to plan for it.
Sure. Yeah, and just to clarify, and I don't think this is what you're saying, but it's not necessarily exclusively being wise with your money, because we do live in a system where you have high rent and a low minimum wage, and some people just simply can't make ends meet. But I do think there is a sort of internal economy of, for example, I just did a t-shirt thing, and that allowed me to purchase some upgrades for the studio. But I also know a lot of local artists here will, the community will support what they're doing if they can. Or like there's a friend of ours in the scene that we get, or Sarah, my wife, gets her tattoos from, because she's part of the community. And so we try and find, like Scary Lady Sarah works at the tube flotation meditation thing. Yeah. And I know a lot of people in Chicago will go there to support her job. So I think there is a lot of internal camaraderie and helping each other out, even outside of just like giving, free stuff to each other.
Yeah. Also, William and his permaculture activism and stuff like that, that people will go and attend talks and events about.
So if we look kind of anecdotally, I'm interested to hear everybody's views on this, what they're seeing. Do you see there is a predominant class of people in the local community? Is it primarily middle class or working class or poor people or upper class people, or is it a pretty good mix, especially looking at people who are respected within the community? Because I think that's telling of where the value system lies. Are those people that are of a specific class?
It's hard to describe yourself. And I'm one of those people. I'm like corporate goth, I've got a job that I make enough money that I could travel to a festival in another country. I go to any of the concerts that I want, and you'll see me out because money isn't an issue for me. And I have a circle of friends, and it's the same thing. We'll go to another country, we'll drive to another place, we'll stay in a hotel. It's not an issue for us. And I think there's people that we don't see as much because it's not easy for them. And you'll never see them at the local shows. Sometimes you won't even see them at the club because they can't afford to get in, or they can't afford parking, which is usually more than the cover to get in. There, I see all of it. I see all those ranges of people. But then at Obscura Undead, we're trying to do community events where you just show up to some place. You show up to a cemetery and hang out with friends. I mean, that doesn't cost anything. Mm-hmm. It's...
We can all get arrested for trespassing together.
So, or like go to a restaurant and just sit and chat about stuff. And when you do an event like that, we all become in the same class, and we can all get straight to the point, which is talking about music. And, we're talking about the scene and whatever. Mm-hmm. But there are definitely all the classes are there. They're all prevalent.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, I was thinking about people like Sarah and William we were talking about, or somebody like Andy Harriman, who has name recognition. She has a respected book. She's a respected DJ in New York, but she's not rolling in the dough. She lives in a not super great part of the city because she can only afford a certain level of rent. So I think this idea that goth is restrictive because of fashion or because of things you need to buy may be true to a certain extent, but it is possible to participate and accumulate this sort of the subcultural capital of knowledge, length of time in the subculture, experience, and have those values embodied in a way that will give you a respect within the scene without having to have a shit ton of money.
I mean, absolutely. I very much agree with that. I mean, the conversation is free, and the conversation is the best way to learn. And I know that with our Obscure and Dead Nights, where we do have a cover, we make it optional for a lot of folks, because we know that some people can't afford to come out. We also try to find events where parking isn't as much of an issue. Try to find venues where parking isn't as much of an issue. Exactly for these reasons, because our first priority really is community and breaking down, barriers related to age or class or taste and all of that. So I don't remember where I was going with this, but
no, good points.
Thank you.
No, that's true. And there's also this undercurrent of like people giving each other rides or covering entrance fees, or some events that are free before a certain time all of those things I've experienced, and I think it's part of that. If you have a healthy community, we want to help each other out because we want all of us to experience everything together.
Yeah.
And sorry, Trey, what did you want to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say that my experience here is somewhat similar in that I'm generally relatively comfortably middle class, and I don't typically have limits on what shows I can go to, what events I can go to. I can travel as needed. Like I went out to Florida in December and did get out to the castle, and to go to the castle, since I was staying with family in Orlando, I rented a car, drove down, rented or had a hotel for the night, and went to the castle. And that's, not a cheap club event, doing all of that to just go to a dance night. But I don't do that regularly. So most of the times I go out, I'll be, doing the free parking, getting there before the cover. The fact that I don't drink at all means that all I pay for an evening of entertainment is the cover. So while I am comfortable, I do, take care with how I spend, and that's part of why I can go out and be able to not worry about the cost too much. And then I do see a lot of people out who are working from paycheck to paycheck, can't make it out to this event or that event because they've got to get food that week. They can't, spend it on going to a club night. And I've helped some of those people get to nights, given people rides before, paid cover before, even help pay some bills every once in a while.
Once or twice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's so many examples of that. And I've tried to pay that forward too, because I've also paid cover for other people for concerts. I've given people rides. There's been a couple times where we had hangouts at like an IHOP, and I happened to have some extra money that week, so I would like pay for them to get food or appetizers or whatever. So I think when Goth is working at its best, there is that kind of, I have a friend who works at a grocery store that will once a week put out a bunch of food that people can take for free. And a lot of times she'll send me like, hey, here's what's here. Is there anything you need? And like people help each other out in those ways. And I think that's when the sort of communal aspect of goth culture is at its best.
Right. When our acknowledgement of class within the culture is those who have the means know of those people who do not have the means and are willing to lend that hand, willing to reach out and just make sure that they can be a member of the community and participate, even though they don't have the means independently. And yeah, I think that is where the culture is at its healthiest, when everybody's kind of pooling together, making sure everybody has the resources to have the best time possible and keep that scene as healthy as it possibly can be.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, looking out for each other.
And Mouse does that so much. Like, I don't mean to put her on the spot, but
I do.
Mouse, yeah, you really do a lot that, like, just a ton to give people the opportunity to, like, come out, have fun. And, you know that things are hard for me right now, and you've thrown me some work, and that's awesome. And
thank you.
You create a lot of just, like, value and, like, it's not help culture. I don't know what else to call it, but
help culture.
No, I don't know what else to call it.
It's supporting other people.
Yeah.
So like we live in Tampa, and our sister city is Orlando, and it's Orlando's big, so it's like 70 to 90 miles away. And when we go do an event over there, you can't easily drive there and drive back. So you kind of have to go with a group of people. And then, some people, they can't stay in a hotel, or, they can't drive all the way out there. And so we just help each other get to events. Mm-hmm. And that's not a problem, just to have those people with us.
It's, like at hotel rooms to crash.
It's like second nature. Food. So I guess I've never really thought about this.
No, it's definitely something you do, and it's something I appreciate. And I know that I'm not the only one.
It speaks well of you that you are doing this without even being aware of it. Because that means you're not keeping a ledger. You're not keeping account of who you got this and who you got that, and you expect it to be paid back, because that's not what the community is about. Yeah. The community is about seeing someone in need, helping them meet their needs, and then moving on. It's in the past at that point, and you're not ticking off a box to say, okay, this person owes me this and this person owes me that. That is definitely the sign of a healthy relationship with the community.
Awesome. Yeah, and it happens all the time. And sometimes it's something as simple as just, we're all parking in one place and jumping in a vehicle so that we don't have to play parking for each vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just second nature. We just do it all the time. We would rather be together than think about anything else. We don't even think about it.
Yeah.
You help your friend get over the fence to the cemetery at night when it's locked. Yeah. All right, so this wouldn't be a Cemetery Confessions episode if I didn't bring up some academic reference to this subject. So I just want to briefly talk about this book from David Muggleton called Inside Subculture, The Postmodern Meaning of Style. And he makes this argument in the book about goth straddling class boundaries, and he has two sort of ways that he sees that being made possible. There's the expansion of middle class jobs into other arenas, and then there's the proliferation of goth and similar alternative milieus that have had a significant impact on the cultural conscience outside of those groups. So basically meaning that there are more opportunities for people to find work, which is debatable. But I think the more important part of that is that goth and alternative cultures have had an impact so that they're less alien than they were in the past and have these kind of cultural touchstones in the general sort of media world. And then he also talks about this idea of the veneration of individualism and heterogeneity, which just means diversity, in goth culture, which he sees as coming out of a them versus us mentality. So he sees that for goths, the creative and unique is identified as authentic goth in opposition to a perceived homogenous other. So there's this sort of abstracted mainstream or other that's defined in terms of aesthetic blandness, kind of cookie cutter appearance, closed-mindedness, and these other kind of personality traits rather than a class distinction, which would be opposed to like punk, which is kind of often understood to be a product of a political climate and very us versus them distinction in terms of class disparity, whereas goths distinction is very different. They have very different values, so that notion of class identity doesn't really come into what it means to be or participate in goth culture.
So in that first part, where they were talking about the concept of, I guess, the more accessibility of jobs and whatnot in relation to the visibility of goth and things like that, was the author making the argument that because goths are visible, because they're somewhat accepted in society, because colored hair and tattoos and piercings have become something that you see on the street all the time, that they're no longer this total deal breaker when it comes to engaging in the world of the mainstream? You can go out, so you can be out there without having to worry about, definitely being unable to get any sort of jobs and being spit on and beaten up or whatever.
It's less relevant of a stereotype, whereas if you compare it to something like maybe face tattoos or even people of color, if you are a person of color and lower class, you very much have this like bigotry, systemic bigotry applied to perceptions and stereotypes of you, whereas stuff like colored hair or tattoos, alternative appearances, don't necessarily equate to specific stereotypes as much if you're poor than they have in the past. It's kind of that argument. So that because of that, for alternative cultures, class and wealth is less of an issue, less of a touchstone for identity, I guess.
Okay.
That was a lot.
Yeah, I don't know where to
So I'm going to try to break it down. Aesthetic blandness. I love that term. I think that's cute. I did see that it was mentioned creativity and uniqueness is being Okay, so creativity and uniqueness is what I was mentioning before. That's what makes us seek the goth community, because we're not satisfied with that mainstream culture. And that creativity and uniqueness is being accepted in the workplace. So it's starting to be accepted in the workplace, but not necessarily goth. So I have one of those corporate jobs, and I saw it happen where I was dressed to the nines coming into the office, doing my little call center job at the time. And I got stuck there spinning in circles in that job because of how I looked. And once I toned it back and started to be more professional, I was able to open up all these opportunities to get interviews and move up in ranks. And now I have the job that I want, and I'm expressing like a corporate goth kind of look, like the New York City goth, like, you could dress in black and you could wear, jackets. And I'm still, dressed in black from head to toe every single day, but people don't see it as goth. They don't know it's goth. They just see alternative. Right. And with the, there's a huge influx of millennials coming into the workspace now. So a lot of the change has to do with that, with the demographic of the people who are working. It's not goth, it's alternative people. So you could just point out any 24-year-old and they probably have a shaved head and a colored hair and tattoos that are visible.
Yeah, undercuts were super popular for a long time with just a lot of different, styles.
Yeah, I'm riding this hipster millennial train. Like I definitely did in the workplace.
I love it.
Because that's what people associate it with.
Well, that's part of it. And I mean, I think that's a product of the work that people in the 80s and 90s have done over time to kind of normalize individual expression, that to become more acceptable. And there, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because then you have people complaining about, well, I went up to someone who ostensibly was goth and they didn't know who Bauhaus was. But on the other hand, it's easier to get, and not to invalidate anyone else's experience, but from my experience, like I just recently had a promotion this week to a senior position, and I was promoted a couple years ago to the position I was at. And then so like, at least in my specific company, and I go to work dressed every day as I'm dressed now, if you can see me on the live stream. And they have been able to, the company I work for has valued my motivation in the job and the quality of work that I put out rather than, to be fair, like it's a tech company, so maybe it's a little bit more progressive, and we have a lot of people on the LGBTQ people. We have a lot of people of color working there, and it's really diverse. So that could just be my experience, but in general, at least, we're not getting spit on or laughed at as much.
I have the same experience. I'm in operations and technology for a megacorp that'll go unnamed, and most of the time I work from home. And I don't have to go into the office, but when I do, I'm a corporate goth, pretty decked out. My shoes are crazy and all of that, and they accept me because they know the work that I've done. I don't need in my job for people to prejudge me or have a bias on my skill set because they don't understand an alternative person. But I don't have that problem anymore. And I see it all around me, new, younger people, and they're just being themselves, and they're being quirky and alternative, and everybody's accepting of it. I like that.
Yeah, there's definitely been some good progress in that. It's still got a ways to go because I think it's mostly broken open the sort of entry level of the sort of middle class job sphere. Whereas before it was maybe entry level of the lower class job sphere. You had to work a retail shop or some very, very menial position. We've expanded now to some white collar, but it is usually still at the entry level. You rarely see anybody getting up into lower, middle, upper management that is expressing any sort of alternativity in appearance. Usually there is some sort of a significant toning back. At least that's been my experience. I know where I work is a I actually work for a staffing agency, so I see a lot of things coming through, though I'm in the IT sphere, but I do tone it down a fair amount. I don't necessarily dress all like I would at going out to a club, but I don't dress, in a nice, very conservative suit either. There's definitely a measure of my own personality that comes through, and I'm also a member of our company's diversity committee, so we talk about a lot of this stuff around acceptance of various classes and races, ethnicities, gender expressions, sexualities. And, our goal, or at least my goal within the diversity committee, would be to get to a world where people are judged by what they can do, what they can give the company, not by some arbitrary aspect of their appearance. But there's still definitely ways to go, but doors have definitely been opened from what was available to people who just looked outside the mainstream in the earlier decades.
There's a long way to go. So in my company, we've got tens of thousands of employees, but in the upper tiers of management, they are white, older men, period. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. And I'm never going to be that, as hard as I try. So I have to work. I try sometimes. So I have to work 200% smarter. And I'm not just talking about my day job. I'm talking about my night jobs as well. Mm-hmm. You look at DJs and you know them. They are white, older men. And these are my friends. I'm not speaking badly against them at all, but I had to create my own scene. I had to make my own club nights. I had to create everything from the ground up because there was no spot for me. And then I met somebody like Azzy and some other DJs, and it's not just the female DJs that need attention. It's any DJ that's alternative. We're creating a whole other mainstream within the goth culture, and that's what we're trying to stray away from. I don't want the mainstream in the goth culture. So if the mainstream is a older white DJ, let's make something else. Not to replace it, just to add to it. Just diversity. Give us diverse DJs. Give us diverse music. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, any group of people, any culture, no matter how alternative they may be compared to the quote-unquote mainstream, has its own internal mainstream, has its own internal norms of what it's like to be in certain roles and functions. And those definitely need to be broken down. The concept that band members, musicians, singers, DJs, promoters, whatever, they're always a certain type of person. And seeing more diversity in that, I think, definitely makes everything better. Everything's healthier in that sense. But those people who don't fit that default template have to put at least 200% the effort in to get the same recognition and acclaim that someone who just waltzes on in with, they just look the part. And so it works for them.
Yeah. Thin white people are still afforded opportunities that others don't get. And like you said, you kind of have to work twice as hard to get to, onto the same level. And that's still a thing. Like we're still, just because we're subcultural doesn't mean we're immune to intaking those external sort of
we're a small society,
prejudiced power structures.
We're a small society, so we are falling into the exact same as any society. Same problems.
Ooh, it is obnoxious.
Right. I mean, that's sort of a subcultural thing, is any aspect of the superculture that the subcultural ideal doesn't directly confront or doesn't directly choose to differ from, just seeps in because it's just the norm within the culture the subculture is within. So, it does need to be made as part of the intention of those members of the subculture to address this aspect if they want that to change within their subculture and have it another part that they differ from the overall overarching culture.
I have so many complaints that I can complain about with exactly this, with, being in the DJ booth and getting ignored so someone can go talk to the guy who's standing, 10 feet away from me who isn't spinning.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
thing.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
Like we're the girls standing
Oh,
in
yes.
the booth, and they're like, they look around us, and it's like, no, we're actually the DJ.
Yeah, or like I am by no means a small person, and I've also spun with some of my best DJ friends, and they're thinner, and people immediately gravitate towards them to ask them what's playing, and like this is, I know, what's happened with Mouse, and it's just like I'm not spinning right now.
But people resonate more with another person that looks like them.
I know.
So
Yeah.
that's how it happens. That's how it begins.
And well, you know what? I mean, this is why presentation of people in the community within the media is important, because like, sure, we can talk about mainstream culture and how it's always white people, and if you talk with kids that are people of color, or even just people of color, like they still have this internalized, like, yes, the white person is the good one and the person of color is the bad one, because that's what's presented. But that's why it's so important within subcultural media, when we only have the magazines and the Instagram posts and stuff are all thin white people, that that becomes the standard of, this is what it means to be the best goth, or this is the good thing. And so even well-meaning people just kind of don't realize that they're internalizing that and reinforcing those expectations, because that's what is presented. And that's why it's so important to change and diversify the kind of media that people are seeing.
I mean, I could go on like a whole rant about how when I go out and spin, I dress very simply, but I do my hair and my makeup just really big and loud and wild. And the whole point of that is because it's like, yes, I am fully accepting that there is not a lot of clothes out there for me, based on current fashion trends, but that doesn't mean I can't still be awesome.
Yeah.
And the hair is really
power
awesome.
back.
It's amazing.
It gets so big.
Yeah, you definitely you can turn up what you have control over and what you have agency in.
So before we move on to fashion here, I just wanted to bring up this, because we've been talking about how the sort of idea of class, the class that you're in, dictating your cultural practices and your ideologies and your habitual natures sort of going out of vogue, and the idea of this more plural interaction of a bunch of different things directing those ideologies. But going from an internal cultural perspective to an external perspective, there's still something we have to be conscious of when we're looking at these sort of power structures outside of the goth scene. If we're looking at the culture as a whole, if you live in a city where like people of color are sort of relegated to certain parts of town and poor people are in certain parts of town, and all of the events take place in middle upper class parts of town, that will in an indirect way impact who is participating in the scene, because like, say, people of color going to those parts of town, maybe they're more afraid of police brutality, maybe they're uncomfortable being in a place where they're getting slurs hurled at them or whatever, so they're not going to go out, or they can't afford it because it's in a higher part of town, so by necessity the venue has to charge a higher amount,
or just parking's expensive.
Yeah,
and there's no readily accessible public transit to this nice area of town.
Right. So these external systemic power structures that oppress certain groups is going to have an impact on who you actually see at a club event or a concert or whatever it is. So there's this and obviously this is based on the certain ecology of where you are, but there can be this sort of external force changing the sort of type of people that you see that are able to be involved in the culture.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that, but at the same time, the goth culture isn't like it's not like a hat that you wear one day and then you put it down the next day. So if like I went
for everyone on this podcast.
Yeah, that is true. Okay, so I went through my phases where I couldn't afford to eat. I ate like 30-cent ramen every day, and I never got discouraged from being in this subculture. I was what I was. I still listen to music. I still believe these things. I still love the macabre and the morbid and the like. This is me every day. If I can't afford to go to a club, I don't go to the club, but I don't stop being goth. Is it something that you just take off like pants? I'm not going to wear the pants this day because I can't afford it.
I mean, I have a different experience than that. I mean, I grew up in extreme poverty. Like, a lot of times we didn't have food to eat, and I have this still very much ingrained mentality of, everyone hates on the poorest family in town. And I don't belong, or I'm being judged by people in like higher socioeconomic classes. So I sometimes feel like I don't belong still to this day, even if it's in goth subculture and I know everyone. I still feel like sometimes I don't belong like at the castle and everyone is dressed up, very fancily, because it's like I see that and it triggers this very deep-seated distrust in me that I've worked really hard to get over, because this is like community and family, but it's still definitely there.
But I realize that you had those frustrations, and that's one of the things that led us to creating this community where we reach out to other people who are like us, and we go out to eat, or we go somewhere and we go pick people up, and because a lot of people struggle. And that's fine.
And that's my response now. But there was a time in my life when I specifically avoided spaces because I thought this is for, people, who might be more upper middle class or something like that, because I thought that I wasn't welcome there. That's not how I feel like most of the time now, or at least not like in outward expression, but I still very much have that deeply ingrained in me, even if I'm fighting against it and helping, create a more comfortable space where that's not a factor for other people.
But you didn't.
Now that
I was just going to say that, but you didn't get discouraged enough to walk away from the goth scene.
I was out of the scene for about 3 or 4 years in my mid-20s.
That was college.
That was college. Yeah. But that was because I didn't feel like I belonged in that space, and it just snowballed into every aspect of my life.
But I'm glad that you moved here and showed me that frustration and that anger so that we could kick the scene in the butt and do something about it. And we are. We're doing something.
We're doing something, and that's important.
Yeah, those are the important things. And I don't think it's a matter of, with this topic of those spaces being unapproachable or unwelcoming to certain classes makes people in those classes want to abandon the scene itself, or not the scene, but abandon the culture itself, like be not a goth. But having those spaces be unapproachable or unwelcoming does skew the perception of what that goth scene is for both those people who do participate in that space as well as outsiders, where we're kind of confronting this idea that is prevalent online of people thinking that goth is a purely middle to upper middle class subculture, because the only thing that's visible to the outside is who shows up at the events, who shows up at the clubs. And as Danny was saying, if those events, those club nights only happen to be in areas that are unapproachable for those who don't have means or an unwelcome class of people, it does alter perceptions in that case. And I think there are also potentially some areas where almost the reverse can happen, This is something that I vaguely remember, and I could be totally off base, but I thought I read somewhere that in Mexico City, the alternative scene, whether it's punk, goth, metal, whatever, all tends to be in really poorer areas of the city that are not always safe for well-off people to go. So it almost goes in the reverse in that direction. And I think what you guys are talking about as far as the community doing what they can to acknowledge that there are people of all classes that, even if you don't see them every day at the clubs, want to be part of the scene and aren't willing to give up the identity of goth simply because of these practical matters, that it's important for us as community members, especially those who have the ability to promote, to do events, host events, to make sure there's this variety of events that don't just happen at this one club in this one area of town, but do have little social events, cheap events, free events, events that you can carpool to. So it is our obligation as members of the community to just be aware of whatever, boundaries, whatever barriers may be present that are keeping people from participating in the way they want to, and just trying to ease those and just give them the variety to allow them to participate in more than just an online space that they can happen to get to because they've got an internet connection at the local library.
Mm-hmm. And you touched upon people who take a look at the goth scene for the first time and they're seeing representation on the internet, and it seems to be very high fashion, and you've got your goth models and your goth personalities, and they think that that's what it is. And I realize that it could be perceived that way, but it shouldn't be taken that is the goth scene. The goth scene is the people around you. It's not the people that you see on the internet. They have their millions of followers or millions of views. Those are, the goth superstars. Those are the movie stars, if you will. And in real life, people don't look at the movie stars and say, oh, that's what this culture is. We like it and everything, but we know it's a fantasy. And in the back of our heads, we know reality is what we see every day. So I know that a gothic person, doesn't look like Saikara or, whoever, anybody, name some, YouTube personality. They look like people I see like every weekend or every other weekend or every month. They're real people. Not that the Instagram goths are fake. I'm not going to even mention that, but they're not people that I see every day. So the perception should be what's around you.
Yeah, but you have had the luxury of having people around you. That's the thing. As when I was first getting into goth, a lot of these movie icons were very iconic for me. I can't point to Instagram or YouTube or anything like that, but definitely in the movies, the Lydia Dietzes and the Eric Dravens and like all that jazz, and especially from like comics too, even. I took a lot of visual cues on what it meant to be goth from like outwardly, like from that, and it was very dramatic and very overblown and over the top. And I can only imagine that that's sort of what's happening with people who are very into Instagram and YouTube now. It's that same sort of mentality, especially when they don't have others around them to sort of present a diversity of experience.
Mm-hmm. You're right. It is what's needed is a diversity, all kinds of people around you. And I think maybe as DJs, we're a little bit more privileged too, because we do have access to the people.
I'd say that's a very accurate statement, honestly.
Right. You're put in a position where people come to you. So you get to see people interact with you because you're in that role that is central to at least the club and music and dancing side of the community. So you don't have to worry about, trying to approach people and fit in and starting those conversations. You have an automatic icebreaker simply by being in the DJ booth and spinning the songs that people are coming to ask you about.
Yeah, and more people actually talk to us when clubs are not happening. They talk to us online, and they ask us questions. And I have people who are almost complete strangers contacting me for things within the scene, like, how do I do this appropriately? What do I do? Where do I go? Just because they know me and they know that I'll speak to them in a language they can understand, but they don't really talk to me in person in the booth.
Yeah, I'm starting to have some of that happen after about a year and a half of being out here, and it's very strange.
It's cool.
It's cool, but it's very strange.
It's weird because I started becoming a DJ because I didn't want to talk to people.
I needed that icebreaker. That was a third of the reason why I started.
I didn't want people to talk to me. I didn't want them to flirt with me. And I'm like, you know what? I just want to be the person who makes the music happen.
Wow, that worked out, didn't it?
Yeah, now I talk to people more than anybody else.
All right, well, let's close this part of the discussion out talking a little about fashion, because that is, I think, the primary thrust of a lot of discourse online, not just looking at classism, but just anything. People are super opinionated about fashion. And recently, I hate to use this example, but there was that post going around of a white girl saying that black people can't be part of goth because goth clothing is expensive and black people are poor.
Do we have to talk about this?
So that's an extreme example. No, that's an extreme example, but it gets at this other thing I see baby bats complaining about, or just people talking about, is the perception of the fast fashion, the kill stars, the whatevers, and how expensive they are, and people feeling like they need to have those clothes to be considered goth.
Yeah.
And that plays into this idea that you need to spend money to be a goth. So what are your thoughts about that?
I have this argument on a daily basis.
Daily basis.
So, well, once you say it on Cemetery Confessions, it's settled. So
it's
you won't have to talk about it ever again.
That's why we never have multiple shows about the same topic on this show.
I go on these Facebook comment threads. I'm like, have you guys listened? You guys haven't listened to Cemetery Confessions. I think here's a link. It'll fix it for you.
Permanent forever. Okay. Do you want me to start? Because I can ramble for a while.
I know, so I'll start. Well, the thing is, people can wear what they want to wear, but it's when people start getting so obsessed with how much money each of their wardrobe pieces cost, and they make it known how much each of their wardrobe pieces cost. That's when it's such a huge problem, because you're not putting value on necessarily looking great. You're putting value on how much money you spent on your wardrobe. And I hate that. I absolutely hate that. And who knows, maybe if I could fit into this fashion, I would have a completely different perspective on it. But I can't. And a lot of my stuff that I personally get is usually very cheap or thrifted or altered in some way to fit me. And at the end of the day, people can wear what they want. Just stop doing this mental tally of how much your wardrobe costs or what brand names are in your wardrobe and placing value on that.
Yeah, and see, I just to contrast today with my experience as a baby bat a while ago, it wasn't this is how much money I'm wearing. It was let me tell you how my how this pre-Raphaelite dress relates to the Emily Bront aesthetic. It was always tied to something else, whether it was philosophy or literature or something. There was this conversation around why this was important for some other deeper meaning, rather than just, hey, look, I've got a bunch of money to spend.
When I was a baby bat, I thought that I had to be able to afford an $800 Rose Mortem dress, and that was my pinnacle. And looking back on that,
she has drastically increased her prices now that her store reopened. Did you see that?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
A friend of mine here, I do actually. A friend of mine here.
Okay.
Met her at a film festival. Her and her husband Ashton, and just earlier this month, And she was telling her that they had such a demand in their store that they couldn't keep up with it. So they jacked up the prices, which, I mean, is amazing that people are valuing like this small goth fashion designer that much that they have that room to up their prices. And I heard you say something, but it was so quiet.
Sorry, it is just her making the clothing. I was trying to look to see if I could do a visual representation, but she actually made my wife's wedding dress for free as a wedding gift.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And her and Ashton both came. And I was trying to find it, but I think it's in the closet in our bedroom. But yeah, the prices went way up. That was my guess too, was that because it's just her, that she's like, well, if it takes this amount of time to make the thing and I can't fill 100 orders, I'll just raise the price a bunch. And
I think that's so cool.
If people are going to pay for it, they're going to pay for it. But yeah. So let's I mean, that's one of the things I want to talk about too, because there's plenty of videos I could point to on YouTube sort of berating the fast fashion and the Killstar aesthetic and why Killstar is killing goth and appropriating religious symbology and blah 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 blah, but nobody ever seems to talk about alternatives. And I think that's equally important if you want to critique the problem. You know, if you don't give an alternative, you're basically just doing promotion for that company. So I wrote down a few of my like places I could recommend people to, but I'd love to hear if you guys have specific designers or companies that you'd like to buy from that are, you know, small people within the scene.
I mean, shout out to Jason, Junkyard Bat. I've been getting a lot of my jewelry from him lately.
Oh, dude, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we have local artists that make stuff. You know, Ravens and Rockers for one. Like we said, they do have some name brand things, name brand goth items, but there's a lot of unique stuff there, and there's consignment as well. So I picked up this really cool like punk rock vest, and then one of my friends was like, "Hey, that's mine," you know, and
that's awesome.
I'm like, "Oh wow," you know, like there's always going to be a culture of what's mainstream goth now, and I don't know if it's like Killstar dolls killing all of that. I don't know if it's goth that was created for the mainstream or if it's the mainstream of goth now. But wherever it lies, it is another small society, like we were saying, and
awkward smile.
Yeah, ting. Yeah, wherever it lies. Inherently, we're still the same. We're disgusted by the mainstream by nature. So just keep away from it. If you don't like it, you don't want to support it, don't buy it. And go back to wearing your clothes in a creative way. You can make some badass outfits by yourself with what you have in your house. Like I can take like 3 or 4 pieces of clothing and stitch them together and make one new piece of clothing that looks like post-apocalyptic and amazing. It looks all J-rock and everything. And everybody's like, "Where did you buy that?" And I'm like, "I didn't. I mean, this piece is Goodwill. That part down there is Salvation Army," you know, and we have to push against it.
Frank fashion, not fast fashion.
Yeah. Be creative and unique.
So I don't want to be too picky. Like I have issues with the sort of ambivalent or ambiguous mainstream comparison, but I do, because like you can compare Killstar to like Hot Topic from the early 2000s, where it's you had people complaining about, well, you have mall goths and you have it's not real goth, et cetera, but you still had people buying the clothing and modifying it or going to Forever 21, and so I don't think it's all evil, but there's like this dichotomy of frustration with I think a lot of times they're baby bashed, but just people that are like, I'm just going to buy Killstar and then that means I'm cool, right? And then the sort of realization that, well, it makes it easier for me to get like good makeup if you want to look at makeup companies or cute leggings or whatever it is. So I don't think it's necessarily a black and white distinction, just like I don't think goth fashion and mainstream is a black and white distinction either. But the conversation around it, I think, needs to happen, because there has to be this recognition that fashion isn't the end of it, the start and the end of it. There's a lot more happening there.
Yes. Music is the start and the end of it. And I'm always going to say that. But
all right, well, we'll fight about that on another podcast.
I hope I'm on it. Yeah, the frustration is with the people who believe that the aesthetic is Killstar. Hashtag Killstar is not goth.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, goth is not Killstar.
Oh, is that it?
There
Okay,
are
sorry.
0 posts for hashtag Killstar is not goth. I just looked that up today.
Are you serious?
Yes, I was
Okay.
having an argument about it.
Hashtag Killstar is not goth.
Okay, so very briefly. Here's my quip with the notion that goth is just music. I think what happens when people say goth is music, they're missing that there's an implicit depth to music, that it's not, when you say goth is music, you're not just saying goth is this sound,
No.
because the music developed with literature and philosophy and various art movements and fashion in mind. So there's this deep well of lots of different things that created the music. So I think it's fair to say goth, music is the start and end of it, but it's not music as in a musicological tonality and timbre and arpeggiated. Thank you. Arpeggiated, guitar, whatever it is this. It's more than that, which is where
it's all music. It's every aspect of goth that you can think of has music happening in the background.
Right.
It's the spine of it.
I could agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then from my end, as far as recommendations for people for things to check out, Etsy is a great place. There's a lot of high quality goth designers for jewelry, clothing, patches. There's like established stores, and then there are people who pop up here and there and do one-off pieces. Like I bought a really cool pair of Death Rock pants from a store that she put out like 3 things and then disappeared from the face of the earth. But it was someone you're supporting within the scene. And then as far as also obviously eBay is great. So Etsy and eBay, everybody knows about that. But a few like more well-known websites, I think it would be safe to point people to, and anybody can correct me if there's issues I'm not, in the know on. Dracula Clothing, Drac in a Box, Dark Angel Company, Retroscope Fashions, Shrine, and maybe Punk Rave, and also Ipso Facto, which I know curates a lot of different brands. Those are like what I kind of try to point people to. Obviously, brick and mortar stores, if you have one, it's great to support them. I know you can, like you said, get into the problem where everybody's wearing the exact same thing. But I think the important thing is to, before you buy something, do a cursory amount of research on the company and try to support people that are actually passionate about, our thing, rather than someone who may be just trying to capitalize on the alternative fashion being hip at the moment.
So can you elaborate a little bit on, when you're mentioning Etsy and eBay as sources, what do you use? What's your methodology? What's your search strategy for targeting those items that you want on those sites? Because they are full of stuff.
Yeah. So thank you for calling me Accountant, not Daniel, by the way.
Making a special effort.
So, like, for example, if I'm building a new vest, I'll go on Etsy and I'll just search goth patches just as a general. And then I'll see what comes up, and I'll go to the specific stores and see who is this person. I'll look at their profile, try to gather some information and see what are they selling. Is it just a different outlet for another website? Okay, let me go to that website and see what it is. Are they just selling a bunch of Guns N' Roses and then they've got a few Bauhaus shirts or whatever? Is it someone who is like working out of their house? Can I find some photos of them or some social media and see, like, are they involved with the community? So I try to do a general search, first, get some background on the pages I land on, or if I'm looking for a specific band, the first thing I'll do, like if I want, I don't know, a She Passed Away patch, I'll look on the She Passed Away Bandcamp and website to see if they're selling their own merch specifically. And if I can't find it there, then I will go to Etsy or eBay and see if anyone is like custom making patches that is still involved within the scene.
No, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to think of, because sometimes you can get lost. Just I go onto eBay or Etsy and I just type in goth, and
don't do that.
You get, yeah, exactly. So that's why I wanted a little bit more.
I do like
information about
Etsy.
A good strategy.
I love Etsy, and what I do is I start from Pinterest, and I do love Pinterest. I just make all these visual boards of all my different looks that I like. And each one will take you to places on Etsy and places on eBay. And yes, you'll see the mainstream goth outlets, but you follow them all the way through to see where it takes you. And I like to support artists that are local, and I like some that are all the way in the UK or Japan or somewhere. And I'll wait 3 months for my clothes to arrive. Just knowing that somebody has made it by hand. It may be one of a kind, and that's fine. That's where I get all my stuff from, or Goodwill and Salvation Army. And
I love seeing your random mail shit. Like, you get so much weird stuff in.
Oh, I do. I order crap online. I become a homebody sometimes, and I'll order stuff from China, and I won't remember. So then, like, I'll get a package. I'm like, what did Past Mouse send me? And I'll open it up and yay, oh, she's so sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, mine's usually, what did drunk Daniel buy for me?
That's even better.
Yeah.
It was the steampunk scene.
Oh boy.
In
nope,
quotation marks.
This is a whole podcast. Okay.
It is. It kind of is. So, as a person who is a DJ, there isn't, oh my God, I'm not even going to talk about steampunk music, but steampunk fashion is just, I thought it was so cool at first. I was so happy. And now whatever it is, it's like a mutated monster. And there is a big movement of it here in Tampa. And there are steampunk parties, and thousands of people support it and come. So
really?
Yeah.
Steampunk is basically dead here. I don't think there's any, other than anime conventions, there's no real scene for it that I know of.
Yeah, I've not seen any active scene. I mean, they show up at the Ren Fair because they do have a steampunk night, and the Ren Fair does have several steampunk
fucking
shops, and that's fine. And they'll show up at your ASEN, they'll show up at your C2E2 a little bit. Yeah. So some of the conventions around media culture, they'll show up for, and I'm sure they have meetups, and I'm sure they have small independent things, but I don't look for those because I'm not really part of that community, though I don't have as much of a, I guess, antipathy towards it as many do, because I did come out of the sort of Victorian Goth aesthetic, so I appreciate a lot of the aesthetic. I just don't like the laziness of you throw a goggle and a couple of gears on a random thing and all of a sudden it's steampunk. I want to see more creativity than just that very, those very small touchstones. Just, then it's steampunk. And I'm like, no, that's just lazy.
That's a Nerf gun with a bronze cog on it, you dumbass.
Yeah, and I'm all about the Victorian Goth. Like, that is just wonderful and beautiful, Victorian and Edwardian. And then you do have these people who are wearing these mass-produced, dresses or hats or whatever, and those plastic goggles, the really fake, cheesy chrome ones. Oh, no, they're gold. They're gold. Everything's gold. And I just don't like
brass.
Brown and gold. They're supposed to be brass.
Yes.
But they're cheap gold.
I wonder if it's because of all the pirate festivals, because of Gasparilla, and people just need to slap goggles onto their Gasparilla outfit.
Well, that's only a Tampa thing. So if you're not in Tampa, you don't understand.
That's why I'm talking Tampa.
The pirates.
I know enough people from Florida that I'm familiar with the pirate fascination out there.
We have a pirate problem. But that's probably also why steampunk is it's just the next logical step.
Well, I think that aesthetic also kind of came out of the cybergoth thing, because with cybergoth you had a lot of these like painter's masks with spikes slapped on them, and they're spray painted, and they've got, and then it's kind of the same idea when you get over to steampunk, and neither of those things I am a fan of. So
I'm not sure I agree with that.
Well, it's not related.
A lot of the steampunks that I've known, like, who are really into it are like older folks who I can't imagine were ever involved with like cybergoth.
No, there's almost no relation, at least from what we've seen over here. Like cybergoth was specifically like huge in Europe and related to like the dark electro EBM music that came out in 2005, and then it blew up. You could still see people wearing it in Europe, but not over here anymore. You don't see that at all.
Yeah, there's like a handful
that's
of
true.
people.
And
I don't see them as stemming one from the other, but there's certainly a similarity in. I guess I have the same complaint, is what it comes down to. Where
like if you're going to be in you just do a very basic thing, and it turns your outfit. You put some neon in there, and all of a sudden your standard outfit, or you have a gas mask, and all of a sudden you're cyber, just like the gears and the goggles. But that happens in just about everything.
That happens in any fashion genre you can pick. If it gets popular, you're going to get the cheap mass-produced version of it. You're going to get the dollar value Walmart brand. With the glowy.
Right. Someone takes the surface aesthetic and just runs with it.
Hashtag Walmart goth. Is that a thing?
Oh my God. We don't need any more. Okay. Swamp goth is gaining popularity. I'm over it.
Is it really?
It is.
Is that like my gutter goth?
No.
I hope it's not.
It's not.
No, it's a mix of rockabilly and a little bit more dirty punk sort of thing.
It's not
dirty
a real
punk
thing. There are like 2 people who started meme pages that made funny memes. And so everyone is like, oh, these are funny. Oh, what's the swamp goth? That must be a thing. But it's not a real thing. Like nobody, it's not a thing. People stop it. Stop talking about it. No, stop it.
We've already talked about it, so now it's a thing.
It's not real.
Oh, that sucks. All right. Anyway, I just wanted to vent about steampunk because, being a music lover, there is actually no historically accurate steampunk. So why would they make it electro swing? Okay, yes.
So the thing is, I've been trying to think of ways to make steampunk, and it would be something like a clockwork drum machine with like a string quartet and
a harpsichord.
Maybe a little bit of
harpsichord?
a clavichord. Well, harpsichord would be in that right era, or early pianoforte.
Yeah, like Baroque music.
Yeah, we'll have definitely Baroque, early classical style music, along with some sort of a clockwork aesthetic, or not just clockwork, but maybe steam-powered percussion, but some sort of automated mechanistic percussion. And I've been trying to think of ways to make this, because I wanted to make something that I could consider an authentic steampunk music, where the entire thing is steampunk, not just its standard rock music or maybe goth rock music with that sings about sky pirates.
Are we talking Abney Park? Because oh god,
everybody. Yes,
so I do like
pirates.
early Abney Park. But their last couple albums they totally leaned into the sky pirate thing.
Yeah.
And Thomas Dolby and Information Society have steampunk elements, but they're doing it right. They're not like sensationalizing it or telling you that you have to dress a certain way.
I'll definitely have to look that up, because I haven't been paying attention to Thomas Dolby in ages. But I love his. I've loved him from the 80s.
If you watch like the video, like Blinded Me with Science, he's got the little German glasses, but with the extra little thing on it. Nobody else was doing that. And then he just went from there and just keep watching like his other music videos, like One of Our Submarines, and he has like Europa and the Pirate Twins, and it's very steampunk aesthetic before steampunk ruined it.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely see that from the Blinded Me with Science video. I guess I didn't associate that with steampunk. I associate it with the Mad Scientist thing, but the Mad Scientist thing has been wrapped into steampunk. So I can certainly see it being related.
Album review.
All right, so this month we are reviewing the new album from Kaelan Mikla, which is titled
Nótt eftir Nótt.
Thank you for saying that. So here's a brief description from the Bandcamp page. Topping a year that catapulted the band onto stages shared with the likes of The Cure and Placebo,
Nótt eftir Nótt
is Kaelan Mikla at their most confident and their most deadly. It's been 5 years since Margareta, Rosa, Laufey, Sophia, and Solveig
Matilda.
Matilda formed the band in
Reykjavik.
And after several tours and high-profile stages, as well as 2 critically acclaimed albums, Kaelan Mikla have truly brought their A game. So we will be the judges of that. I'm going to play a track from their album, and that one is going to be track 3.
Yes.
Which is titled
Hvernig kennst eg upp.
love that song. Track 3. I'll just say track 3. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. That's the I don't know what the song titles actually mean, but I think the title is like, "Hey, what's up?" So that's what I that's what I call it.
What's going on?
If you look on the Bandcamp page, they do translate the lyrics and the song titles.
I read through a few of them.
Looking at the Bandcamp page, I have it open right now, and I can't find that. Maybe I don't
I'll show
know
you.
how to. Oh,
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. Well, Azzy showed me how to use a laptop. Oh, how can I get up? That's not as fun as, hey guys, what's up? But this track, I love this track. I think it's a really interesting post-punk song. Post-punk, for lack of a better term. If I didn't read the notes that called it post-punk, I probably wouldn't have called it that. I think I do picture it more as like minimal punk. Is that a thing? Minimal synth?
Minimal synth punk.
Sure.
Yeah, minimal
Sure.
synth
We can
punk.
coin genres.
It is now.
Yeah, all right, good. It should be a thing. And the next couple of tracks are really good too. Squigadans and Dramadis. There's a music video out now for Dramadis, and I had some trouble grasping what their sound was supposed to embody. And you can kind of get an idea from the album cover, but it was kind of limited, and the album art lets you know what they're going for. And then this music video comes out, and then it just clicked for me after that. It was very weird at first, but such as everything from Iceland. And I want to love it more than I am right now. Like the love isn't there yet. I think I need to give it a couple more listens. But I think the girls are amazing. I love that they've just started doing this within the last like 5 or 6 years, and they're getting some notice. And I love everything that comes out of Iceland, and I wish them the best. But this song Dramadis is growing on me the most, and then the second most is that track 3.
It took me a lot to get into this album. Like I listened to it a ton when it came out and a ton over the last 2 weeks, and I could not put myself in a mood to actually enjoy this album up until the last couple of days, because I found myself just constantly overthinking what was going on in some of these songs, because there's not a lot in what each individual instrument is doing, but the way that they work together, there's like I just kept overthinking it. It's really interesting, especially on like track 4, which that track ended up just growing on me. Even though I initially really just had a real hate for the vocal delivery, it ended up growing on me because even though there's maybe not a lot going on in the instrumentation throughout the entire album, it's very interesting how it all works together. And as I kept listening to it and some of the way that they laid down like the vocal tracks, it reminded me of like early Switchblade Symphony. Just kind of like what they were doing a little bit, but that's really the only like touchstone or marker that I can give for this entire album.
I'm not hearing Switchblade Symphony. What's weird is I wasn't expecting the vocals, and so they come out of nowhere, and they're kind of scratchy and abrasive at first until you know what to expect. And I had associated it with some like witch house elements. Like there's witch house bands like White Ring and Crimes, and they just have this like high pitched like shouting vocal, and it forces an emotion out of you, and that's new and impressive for something like this, because it's not typical dark wave, it's not typical post punk.
Yeah.
It's not wave. It wakes you up. So,
I liked it. Like I said, I hated it at first, but I really enjoyed that now when I re-listen back through the album.
And I have to listen to their other albums as well. I think the last album I had heard before, but I don't remember any standout tracks particularly. I'll just have to go give it another listen.
I didn't get an association with Witch House, though, to be fair. I'm not super familiar with Witch House. I had more of a relation to like Winter Severity Index and Frozen Autumn, that kind of sound.
I'm wearing a Frozen Autumn shirt right now. Sorry, go ahead.
So, yeah. So, what would you guys give the album out of 5? 5 being perfect, 0 being garbage, 2.5 being average.
Can we give 0.5s? Okay, 3.5.
Halves, yeah.
3.5. I think that my my rating is a little premature. I'm sure that if I listen through the rest of the tracks again, it'll be at like a 4. But
yeah, on first listen through, I would have given it like a 2, but now I'd give it a 3.5.
You know, when she gets into those higher vocals on track 4, there's a industrial artist that I can't remember the name of who is German that maybe you guys would be able to figure out what I'm talking about. And she does like kind of weirdish agrotech. And she wears a lot of latex in her videos or is naked.
That's Grassamy Toaster.
Yes, that one. Yeah.
You should have just started off with the is naked and I would have told you. Yeah, Grassamy Toaster is how you pronounce it. Yeah, and
that's what that reminds me of.
I hated her at first and I love her now.
She's fantastic.
I had to watch the videos and I'm like, naked. Oh, got it. I get it now. I get it.
I love like how aggressive and like complex her music is. She's fantastic. I started with track 5 because it seems like a kind of turning point in the album, or at least something different. Because it's super heavy and it has more of the, I compared it to Joy Division-esque bass lines. I'm sorry, it trades the more Joy Division-esque bass lines for more of a dirge-like quality that evokes some like dark abyss pulling at the listener. That was like that track really stood out for me. And then lyrically, the album plays a lot with light and dark, frozen bodies and warm embraces, death and rebirth, these kind of dichotomies, and where what those experiences are like and where the listener falls within those categories. And I think the tension from those extremes really comes across in the actual sound of the music, the instrumentation and the vocal delivery. And that for me was the standout of the album, is that they were able to deliver what's being translated through the lyrics into the sound. And you have to actually go and translate the lyrics to read them in English. But it really added something to the music, I think, once you did that. For me, I think it was great. It was different, and that's what I'm looking for in a lot of the music I try and listen to now. So I am going to give it a 4.5 actually out of 5.
So for me on first listen, I was kind of disappointed in it only because I love Scandinavian music, Icelandic and Norwegian and Swedish and all of those. I like they had a whole, probably in the 90s, and it's still going a little bit, but it hit its heyday in the 90s, a whole folk revival where they were taking some of the native folk stuff, mixing it with more modern sensibilities and some rock and dark wave influences and releasing stuff. And I was kind of hoping for that. So I got, the first track, very ambient, very soundscapey. I was like, oh, yes, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And then it went into more of a very straightforward goth rock, post-punkish type sound. So disappointed there, but that's not their fault. That was my fault in having the wrong expectation and hoping for something different.
I do wish there was more stuff like the first track. I really, really like that. Yeah.
So that was sort of my first impression, but I did listen through it several times. It's admittedly been several weeks since I last listened to it, because when you first announced it that we're going to be reviewing this for this episode, I listened to it a whole bunch at home, in the car, on my walk to work, just repeatedly over and over again. And I mean, I really enjoyed it. I don't necessarily remember it well enough to say I really like this song, I really like that song, but I liked it a lot.
Well,
I
also,
thought
they're
it
not
was
in English, so it's hard to remember what the songs were.
true-ish, though I did go about looking up pronunciation guides for Icelandic.
You're a better man than I am.
I like pronunciation, so it's a big deal for me. I also love languages, but
I'm an American.
I overall enjoyed it.
Sorry.
I thought it did remind me a fair amount of Mephisto Waltz.
Oh yeah, fair call out.
Definitely a lot on the instrumental side of that.
Mm-hmm.
The vocals are definitely sort of 90s era project records, kind of the very distant female vocals, very cold production, emphasizing the high treble side of things on that reverb.
Yeah, this track 6 is very kind of Joy Division-esque.
Yeah. I do hear a little bit of the Switchblade Symphony in there. Again, that's just in the vocals, though. I don't hear it in the instrumentation at all. But on a handful of songs, I do hear a little bit of Switchblade Symphony in the vocals.
Yeah, I'm thinking specifically the title track.
Yes. Yeah, that one definitely had a good feel for that.
Which one?
Nótt eftir
Nótt.
I'm sorry. I'm a terrible person. Yes.
Which I think is just Night After Night.
It's gotta be.
Yeah. So yeah, I really did enjoy it overall. I did end up purchasing the album, and have been having a pretty good time with it. The one thing that confused me, I don't know where I read it, but somewhere, some review had mentioned it was reminiscent of Diamanda Galas.
It was on their Bandcamp page.
And I don't see that at all.
No.
I mean, she shrieks, yes, but not like Diamanda. I mean, there's lots of goth bands who have vocal intonations that are not just pretty singing and do use the rougher things. I mean, you've got Lydia Lunch in there, and you've got other more punk influenced ones who do a lot of those sort of vocal, non-musical vocal expressions. But I don't hear Diamanda Galas in it at all. Not that that's a bad touchstone. I am a huge Diamanda Galas fan. But so overall, I'd say I give it a solid 4.
And one thing I just noticed, because I'm only reading the lyrics now, beautiful, very like visual lyrics, and what I love about it is it is almost more cold wave in its themes, and they're from Iceland, so everything that they're describing are things that you would see in Iceland day to day. A lot of their lyrics are talking about ice and icicles and sparkling, beautifully glittery, bright, and that's a terrible lyric line, sorry, but like the song Næturbloom says, "The night suits us best. We wake up when the sun goes down, when midwinter is at its darkest." And that's the way Iceland is. I mean, sometimes the sun doesn't even rise all the way. And so it's that's very down to earth lyrics there.
Yeah. Very kind of witchy.
Can I change my rating?
Yeah, it's one of the things I like about the Scandinavian. You can always change your rating.
You're entitled to change your rating.
It is
until it's published, and then at that point you're not allowed
no,
to.
it's changing as we speak. It's like it's getting to like a 3.7. Because lyrics,
that's not on the scale.
Oh,
you can't.
Okay. Well, we'll round up to a 4.
I only allow halves.
So,
okay.
Because lyrics are so essential to music, and when you're listening to foreign language, a lot of times you miss that entire element of songwriting. And I really should have looked at the lyrics and listened along with it while I was listening. So I probably didn't give it justice at all.
All right, so let's move on to close out the episode with our Sinister Suggestions.
So you've got to be interested in death. It's the last great taboo. It's the only taboo left.
Precisely. I mean, why is it, do you think, that everyone in here is dressed in black? It's a celebration of death.
No, I just like the clothes.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, the clothes look good. Yeah, I mean, death looks good. Charles Manson, yeah? No, he was cool.
Don't know if I mentioned it before, but I'm actually a vampire.
Sinister Suggestions.
I've spent an insane amount of time this last month listening to the discography for, I don't know how to pronounce the band name, Otzi.
Otzi.
Oh, Otzi. Yeah. Oh, yes. Ooh,
I am
yes.
obsessed.
Ooh.
I am absolutely obsessed.
I have one song from a band called Blogi Milk Seni.
Yeah, you do.
I know. I can't even. I'll spell it. It's like BLOGIE MILCZENIE, and he had one song out only called Tvarza, and it's a beautiful post-punk song that's just seeping in like guitar, like distorted. It might be bass, I don't know, but it's got that like post-punk depth to it, and it's just drawn out and 6 minutes long, and I just love it. And it's been on repeat for me. And he just dropped this week a new EP, and it's like 4 tracks, but they're like 7 minutes long, so you really have to get into a zone, and you can't be multitasking. And it's just gorgeous. I don't think post-punk has enough bands that do this kind of music like this.
I'll have to check it out. I have not heard that, actually.
No, it's very. Oh, I found it on a Cold Transmission compilation. You know, they put out these comps for their label, and there's the Zeitgeist comp, and it was volume 6, I believe, where that track came from.
Okay, awesome. My sinister suggestion is, that reminded me, talking about long songs reminded me about the new album from Soper Aeternus, which I saw some reviews say that it was their post-punk, or not post-punk, death rock album. And have you guys listened to that album?
I have mixed feelings.
I was not a big fan. There was a lot of classic tropes of Soper Aeternus in the sound that you can identify, but it felt like it was forced into something that wasn't really their strong suit. And it just, because I love death rock and I love Soper Aeternus,
but it was neither of those.
But it just didn't. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it didn't work for me. Yeah,
I felt like too much of it was like too much of the same, and the rest of it just didn't work.
Yeah, it was really repetitive. Yeah,
but it did encourage me to go back and listen to old Soper Aeternus again for fun. So there's that.
Yeah. So my sinister suggestion is the new release from Polyverso called Antagonista.
Yes.
Just came out last month, and it's just really good, female fronted, like post-punk. It's very, very good. If you're looking for like a straightforward post-punk album, definitely check that out.
I would also like to recommend The Ire. They put out a demo tape back in January, and I've been throwing that everywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that. I love their demo. That's it.
Cool. Trey, your recommendation better be music.
It actually is.
Okay.
So since I mentioned while listening to the band that we reviewed that I'm a fan of Nordic Scandinavian, the sort of folk revival, thought I'd mention some of my favorite bands that got me into that music in general, way back in college when I was DJing, and I have DJed them at various nights as well. But one of the bands is called Hednin Garna, which is the Heathens. And they're the first band I got into, and I really love the song Raven, which is Foxwoman. I got on a compilation CD. It was the Northside Records was the label, and their comp album was, I don't remember what it was called, but it had a little sticker on it that said cheaper than food. So when I was in a record store and I saw this thing and it was like $2 for this comp album, I bought it.
That is cheaper
than food. Exactly. Yeah. It was great. So I bought it, took it home, was just listening to this stuff, and I just really fell in love with that song. So I definitely recommend Hednin Garna. The one song that became very popular in the local goth scene down in Champaign-Urbana where I was DJing was Thule. Which isn't my favorite of their songs, but it was more a dancey type number. It had a nice steady beat for people to bounce to. So that was a popular one. And then another band that I quite enjoy is Garmarna. And they're the big track that I really love for them is Vedergalnigen, which is Vengeance. It's more of an experimental. It fits a little bit in with more of an industrial sound. But both of those bands are some of my favorites coming out of that sort of folk rock merging from Finland and Norway.
You'll have to send me the links because I have no fucking idea how to spell it.
I will absolutely send you links, or I can just take you to them right here since I'm sitting next to you.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. All right, great. So I'm going to turn this off. So that is our Sinister Suggestions. Mouse and Azzy, why don't you guys let us know where people can find you online, what you want them to take a look at as far as events and that kind of thing.
Well, we are at Obscura Undead. There's obscuraundead.com. There's Obscura Undead on Facebook. We're on Instagram as, I'm sure there's underscores and all kinds of weird stuff.
No, just Obscura Undead.
Really? Oh, okay. Yeah. I am DJ Mouse with underscores, like underscore DJ MAUS. So make sure it's spelled MAUS.
MAUS.
Yeah, because a lot of people can't find me because I just say mouse. I don't even think about it. So same in Facebook. Of course, across the world, there are other DJ Mouses. And I am a little black girl, so I'm not the other guy. I guess there's a guy out of Europe who's like some big beefy dude, your typical white guy DJ. And then there's a female one in Canada, I think. I'm not her.
So I used to go under, when I was DJing, I was DJ Count, and there is the DJ Count on Twitter who does hip hop music. So every once in a while, I'll get tagged as DJ Count is live right now at Needleworks Factory, spinning the latest.
That's awesome.
Whatever it is, I'm like, what? Who is it? What's happening?
Yeah, the Mouse in Europe does like these huge festivals in like Ibiza and stuff, and people are like, "Oh man, I saw you last night. There were 6,000 people there," and I'm just like, "Yeah, that's never gonna be me, dude."
And I'm on Instagram as underscore DJ Azzy. I think there's another underscore in there. That's EAZY. And I am the one that is not any Indian or Middle Eastern dude.
Yeah.
And I'm on Facebook as DJ Azzy Goth, so that's easy to remember. But really, like, I really want to plug our website a little bit more because we have a ton of really cool stuff on there. We do concert reviews, interviews, album reviews for new releases. We're going to be doing some book reviews. We have Junkyard Bat doing DIY corners. And we have Mouse doing mixes, which is awesome. I have a page on there where I am curating pretty much every release I can find that is decent so far as the year goes on. And God, that's a project and a half. And we also have an events calendar where I'm trying to collect all of the just Florida-related sort of goth, dark wave, post-punk events. Like our website is a really great resource.
I agree.
Well, thank you.
Very cool. And I'll have links to all that if you're listening. You can check out the show notes, and all of that will be linked there as well. So Azzy and Mouse, thank you both so much for spending some time with us and chatting about things and stuff.
We love things and stuff.
Thank you so much for having us.
In 2 weeks, we will be back with Genevieve all the way from Wales. She's a philosophy and psychology student, and she's going to be talking about her recent paper on geisha goth. So if you're interested in some information and discussion around the way goth culture not only expresses itself outside of the U.S., but incorporates cultural aesthetic from non-European sources, you're going to want to come back for that. As always, I know we're running a bit long on this episode, but we're going to take some time to thank our Patreon members because you beautiful motherfuckers are the entire reason that this podcast exists. and continues to exist and bring you all of these hopefully entertaining and informative podcast episodes. So at the founders level, we have for the month of February, SJ, Esmeralda, Abigail, Stella, Taya, and Christine. At the Nocturnal Council level, we have Kyra, Dawn, Junkyard Bat, Esther, Hayshaker, Natalie, Michelle, Azzy, Michelle, Thomas, Trey, Isabel, Amber, Fifth Dream, Nephilim Incorruptus, Stevie, Amy, Mike Mess, and William. I hope you all enjoyed the live stream of these episodes, which you have access to before they are published. It's quite a treat having some people hang out in the chat room and share their input. And then at the Crow's Call level, we have Dave, Isabel, Rabin, Alexandra, Kevin, Top Down Tom, Sarah, Ava, Christina, Morgan, David, Jen, Dolly Dagger, Irene, Abby, Jonathan, Becca, Kelly, Isidoro, Dom, Michelle, King Rhinex, Marco, Alex DeWinter, Dark Goth Fairy, Cadaver Kelly, Andrew, Jason, Stuart, Margarita, Christian, Marissa, Kimberly, Alex, Mr. Polar Bear, Dagger Dance, Caroline, Alana, GPS, Eternal Winter, Bronwyn, David, Country Fried Goth, Mark, Angel, Anne, Heather, Laurel, Christopher, Wolfie, Kelly, Ryan, Joseph, Gopal, Susan, Kay, and Beth. Too many to name. Thank you all so much for your support. If you too enjoy this podcast and would like to see what kind of bonus content you can get, what kind of extra merch and rewards you can get, or you just want to throw us $1 or $2 because you enjoy what we're doing and want to help support us, head over to patreon.com/Cemetery Confessions. So that's all for this week. Until next time, stay dark.
The preceding program is a member of the Belfry, a network of blogs, podcasts, and videos for the darkly inclined. Go to thebelfry.rip for more information.
Of anything, did you eat your delicious picturesque
did you see it?
Yeah, I did.
I was so
sad.
so heartbroken. Like, you don't mess with my food.
Yeah,
like I didn't even get the parsley on top.
I feel like they gave you the wrong thing because it had the wrong sauce, and it had
the wrong.
Oh, I don't know if the chicken was overcooked. It was bad, though.
Oh my God. It was bad. I just wanted my honey pepper drizzle over bacon.
Can you really complain
so
that you
pissed.
ate it anyway?
I did eat it anyway.
Oh, I was gonna ask you, did the bread roll come pre-bitten or was that post? Because
Sorry. I hope I didn't break the mic there. That I did bite into it.
I wasn't 100% clear on if it came half eaten or that was you. All right.
I think I would have slammed it on the ground if it came half bitten. We have these Uber drivers that deliver the food, and if they fail to connect with you or they give up, they get to eat your food.
Yeah.
So I have nightmares of them giving up too quickly and just making off with my delicious food.
I have a friend who does what is it, DoorDash?
DoorDash,
I think it's DoorDash. And she did stop by one night. She's like, "Hey, I think these guys were stoned and they never answered the door. So do you want some food? I'm close by your house." So I got to eat somebody's Outback Steakhouse, which was pretty good.
Wow, I think that should probably be my new job. Is go do DoorDash
Eating
and then
people's scraps.
Yeah, 3 times a day. Make sure to not deliver the food so you can eat.
Oh, there was a
Free.
joke I saw about that, which I wasn't sure if it was real or not, but the idea that if you work at a restaurant and someone doesn't eat their food, when the servers take it back, they eat it. And there was a story about like an elderly man who came in every week and always ordered oysters, but he never ate them. And so after a while, the server said that she always took it back and then would eat them. And then at one point she asked why he wouldn't eat them. And he said that he has difficulty swallowing chewy food, so he just would put it in his mouth for the taste and then spit it back out.
Yes! Oh my God. Great story. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's like the first time that I had edamame in a Japanese restaurant, and I was meeting with friends, and they were like, "Hey, try the edamame." And they've got the 2 bowls there, and of course I pick up the wrong bowl, and they don't stop me.
Oh God!
So I'm picking up this used edamame pod, and they're like, "Yeah, you just kind of like you squeeze out the little pea," and I'm like just gnawing on it, and they're like, "You really got to work on it," and I'm trying to get the pea out, and I'm like, "This is weird," and then like 7 minutes later, they tell me I'm eating out of the wrong bowl.